Hey there, happy day 588 of What's She Up To Now. She being Sharon Horne-Ellstrom, also known as Pajama Grandma. And I just I've been thinking about reality today, and our reality is, of course, just our reality. But we all think that our reality and our way of perceiving and seeing and hearing and experiencing the world is the real way that the world is. But here's the rub. Every single other person on the planet feels the exact same way, thinks the exact same way, not as us, but that their reality is, their experience of the world is reality, the real world, the way the world is, the way the world works. It's all impacted by our beliefs and our emotions and the experiences that we've had. So each and every one of us has a different perspective, a different way of looking at the world. But we all know that our way is the right way, the perfect way, the real way, the reality, because it's our reality. It's kind of fascinating. It makes the world really interesting, but it also sometimes makes it difficult to navigate, especially when we're interacting with and dealing with other people and attempting to help other people solve their problems. Well, it's pretty hard to really get inside the head of someone else when we really can't get inside the head of anyone else, because we only can see and experience this world, this life, through our own senses, through our own reality. And so working on the One Funnel Away challenge in the last couple of days, this whole week is all about stories and how do you tell stories so that people can relate to you and have epiphany bridges and epiphanies and aha moments and understand what it is that you're trying to share with them and tell them about. And it's all about, how you sell to people using this storytelling format. It's the same format that's used in every great movie, every great book. And I've been trying to do it for 2 years, and I don't think I've gotten it. And that's part of this journey for me, is learning how to communicate with other people in a way that helps them use their experiences and their reality to see the world not the way I do, but in a different way, so that they're open to the possibilities that there's other realities out there. Because the vast majority of people in the world do not understand what I just said and do not see it. They don't see that they're experiencing life through their filter, through their lens, through their own sense of reality, and assuming that that's the way the world is. And I say this because my ex-husband and I would have huge fights about this, because he would only see the world through his lens and his reality, and had a really hard time understanding the way I saw the world, because we see the world very differently. And although we had similar core values in some areas, we definitely clashed and didn't agree in others. And I would get so frustrated because I would be trying to explain my perception, my way of looking at a situation, and then he would be explaining his. And oftentimes it would be really interesting. We would be on the same page, we would be agreeing, but since we said things differently and we looked at life from different perspectives, a lot of times we would clash and not agree, even though we were saying the same thing and agreeing. Because we said it differently, he wouldn't accept my version of reality, and I would then get frustrated and not understand how he didn't understand that we were saying the same thing. Have you ever had that situation where you've been involved in a conversation like that, and you're like, the person's getting mad at you, and you're like, oh my God, we're saying the exact same thing. We're agreeing 100%. I've been in corporate meetings like that, where all the department heads would be having a meeting, and two people would be having this big argument and debate, and then finally you'd say, hey, time out. Guess what? You are both saying the exact same thing. You're saying it each in your own way, but we're all in agreement here. So let's move on to the next agenda item. I've been in tons of meetings like that, where especially when egos are involved, and let's be honest, we all don't even realize how much we live in our ego versus and how much we'll do to support our status and our beliefs about ourselves. Whether those beliefs about ourselves are positive or negative, we will do all kinds of crazy things to make ourselves right and true and matching our belief about ourselves. We see this all the time when we self-sabotage, when we do things that aren't in our own best interests, because our ego, our subconscious, thinks they are in our best interest because they keep us the same. Our subconscious is not about change. it's our conscious that allows us to change and grow and improve and make things different and better in our life. Our subconscious is like, hey, I've kept you alive this long. I've kept you safe. We're not going to change. We're not going to do anything different. We're just going to keep chugging along, doing what we've been doing. And it's our conscious, it's our mind, it's our higher level intellect that will allow us to grow and become better people. Now, I'm not pretending I know a whole lot about the brain function stuff. Never studied it. I just know what works for me because that's my reality. That's my experiences, right? So reality, really interesting topic. Reality and our beliefs are really tough things for most people to look at and examine because, number one, it's scary, right? It's scary to think that our version of the world isn't the right version of the world. It's also scary to understand that the beliefs that we have, and really beliefs are just thoughts we've thought a whole lot, or that we've associated with a significant enough emotional event that they've locked into us, and we've owned them when we've decided that we believe them. I believe I am an introvert. I believe I am an extrovert. I believe I am fat. I believe I am too skinny. I believe I am stupid. I don't believe I'm not good enough. These are all just things. They're all lies, usually, unless we feel good about them. If you say something, I am this, I am, say I am unworthy. How does that make you feel? If it makes you feel bad, guess what? It's a lie. It's not true for you. So we have to sometimes actually examine our own beliefs and say, is this even true for me? I know over the years I've examined beliefs and I've believed a lot of different things, and it turns out I'll ask myself the question, well, who does that belong to? Because a belief might be something that I heard from my second grade teacher, and I associated that with a good or bad experience, and then I just chose to continue to believe that forever. And then my other experiences after that event where I decided, okay, that is me, I just added evidence, because we look for evidence that makes our beliefs real to us. And guess what? We get exactly what we expect. We will always see what it is we're looking for. Our subconscious will feed us up all kinds of experiences and people saying things, and we'll look for things and we'll actually match up to the things that we believe about ourselves. It's kind of scary, because if we have been subjected to a lot of negativity, a lot of bad things, a lot of abuse, a lot of beliefs that are not in our own best interest, we will fall victim to thinking that that's how our life has to be, that that's how our reality has to be. And we will continue to attract experiences that prove that out for us, that make that a reality. I'll give you an example. When I was younger, I was sick a lot as a kid. I had tonsillitis and all kinds of things like that. And I couldn't really talk a lot of the time. I think every few months I would get tonsillitis, and then I would get infections really easy. So if I got a cut or a scrape, which I was a total tomboy, so I was always out rough and tumbling and getting scraped knees and bruises and stubbed toes and stepping on nails and ripping my face open on a tricycle. So I was always doing things like that. And I was always getting infections and having to take antibiotics and things. And so I was like a sickly kid. And that being sick got me a lot of attention. It got me, not always attention that I wanted, but it got me a lot of attention. In a family of 4 girls, and being a middle kid, I never would have admitted this. I never even understood it growing up, but being sick was the way that I got attention. And then over the years, when I was not taking the best care of myself, and I've had a really long history of bizarre illnesses, I needed help, and it was kind of my way of asking for help, because I'm one of those people that will never ask for help. But I would get sick and get to the point where I would have to get help. It would be brought to other people's attention that I needed help. And so it all goes back to somehow that was a way that I got attention. And I'm just admitting that now, because I never even thought about it until now. It's like, yep, it was all about attention and being seen in a world where a lot of times we don't feel like we're being seen. Interesting. Just discovered something new about myself. Wonder what that's got to do with my vision. I'm going to have to do some more deep-seated psychological work on myself. Like, I have the ability to do that. So reality, what's your reality? And just know that everybody else has their own reality. And the reason I was thinking about this is because it ties so much into storytelling and the way that we tell stories so that other people can relate to them. It's like when an author writes a book or a movie paints a picture and tells a story. If they do a good job of doing it, we put ourselves in the role of the hero or heroine in that story. And when we feel ourselves doing that, then we know that the author has done a good job pulling us into the story. I used to love to read books and novels until my eyes got kind of funky and I can't really read anymore, because it's fun to put yourself in the stories. I loved Greek mythology. I loved different types of historical stories and things where you can imagine yourself living in that time, living in the character. And the cool thing about books and about reading to me is it becomes our story. It becomes a part of us, and we actually can experience it because we see things differently than anybody else does. We create and paint the pictures in our own mind, in our own imagination. And that is way more powerful and experience because we actually experience it instead of just it being any other book. That's why I love stories that pull us in like that, or movies that pull us in like that and make us feel like we are a character in the story. So that's why I was thinking about reality and things like that today. So reality, One Funnel Away Challenge. Today's day, I have to look, 18. And they call it week 2, day 4. But to me, it's day 18 because there's a whole preliminary week. And then there's week 1 was 7 days. Week 2 was 7 days, of course. So I number it differently, but that works for me and what I do with the challenge. Today is all about hooks, hooks, hooks. And I just remember that because it's the end of the storytelling week. Because I've done the One Funnel Away Challenge before and taken groups through it. I love this. This is really a fun one because it's how do we get attention in such a noisy world? Our world is so much noisier. I was talking to my daughter. We went for a walk last night and I was telling her, how much more fun life was for my parents than it was for my ex-husband and I being parents and raising kids. And we had a ton of fun. Don't get me wrong. We were fun parents. We did a lot with our kids, but it wasn't as not stress-free, but it was a lot less stressful when my parents were raising us, and maybe my dad would say otherwise. But it was a different time. It was a different era. Families were important. And I'm sure some people had worse experiences and better experiences than I did growing up. But growing up, it just seemed like my parents had a lot more fun together and had a lot more happy times than my husband and I. And maybe it's just because we're different people, but I think that we live in a time where everything is so fast-paced. There's so much demand for our attention and for our activities and for us making sure we have the perfect children and that they have the perfect experiences and they get into the perfect schools and they have the perfect life, which is a crock, by the way, because there's no such thing as perfect. That it just seems more stressful. So we were chatting about that last night on our walk when we were walking the dogs, and it just reminded me that we need to carve out what feels right for us, no matter what time and era we're living in. But hooks are all about getting attention. How do I get people's attention? How do I stop them in their tracks so they even notice what it is that I'm talking about? I don't want to stop everybody, right? I only want to stop the people that I want to work with, the people that I want to serve, the people that I want to be a part of my life and my businesses. So hooks, 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 working on that. Working with a couple of new mentees and on some really exciting projects, really fun, exciting projects. And I'm sure I'll talk about those in a little more detail when I have permission to. Right now, a lot of the people that I work with, it's on they don't want other people to know that they're working with a coach or a mentor basis. So, and they definitely feel that there's a lot of competition in the areas that they're working, and that's why they've come to me. So they don't necessarily want any details or to be talked about at all. So I don't talk about them, but some really fun projects coming down the pipe. Anyway, if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, just keep sharing what's working, what's not working, what pops into my head as something that's important that a lot of us don't see. And reality is a biggie. It's a biggie. We all think that the world revolves. Well, the world does revolve around us in our reality, but it also revolves around every other person on the planet because they're living in their little reality. It's kind of like we're all running around with these little reality bubbles around us, and they run into each other sometimes and they overlap and they interlace with other people as we have experiences with other people. But for the most part, we're all running around in our own little reality bubble. It's kind of a good way to look at it. I'm going to look at it that way today and see what that does for my perspective. Anyway, go out, make it an amazing day. March to the beat of your own drum. I just found this sitting on the floor. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute. I'm going to put that in my background today. I like to put funny things in my background sometimes just to see what people notice or don't notice. And if they, I think it's kind of fun. Maybe it's just me, but it's fun for me, so I do it. Because that is my reality. Go out, make it an amazing day. I will, of course, be with you tomorrow. Bye. Take care.